All right, we've got quite a few different new Nintendo Switch 2 updates to discuss today, starting with the fallout from yesterday's Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase, because while we did get a lot of games at this presentation, it has come to light on the internet and should really be no surprise, but just how many of these games, if not all of them, are now starting to be confirmed as game key cards. And I do want to revisit this conversation a little bit in depth to kind of just have a reality check with everyone on what we're going to see moving forward in this generation, because I don't think this is going away, even though we have had maybe some glimmers of hope with Nintendo kind of prying in with their own surveys on what consumers think about game key cards. But I definitely want to highlight that and just a number of different updates we now know in terms of some of the file sizes of these games and new details and things like that. We then next up have one of Nintendo's big 2025 games recently rated, its Sakurai's title, Kirby AirRiders, and I want to talk about the state of that game and when we might see some more information on it. There was a new Nintendo Switch 2 system firmware update that hit recently. It is 20.3.0, and we'll read through exactly what some data miners have been discovering about this update online, and it's not a big one, spoiler alert, but still worth mentioning in case you were wondering what, if anything, changed on your Switch 2 software. Then we have an interesting upgrade path situation that has popped up online, as the same publisher is upgrading one game officially for free on one hand, but then officially confirming that an upcoming release will not be upgradable, and it has quite a few different people scratching their head. And lastly, we're going to quickly close it out with a recap of the recent Mario Kart World update that does appear to fix one of the bigger fan complaints around this game following its last update. So we'll get on the same page with all of this info, but before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And we are going to first kick this conversation off right over at X, where you can see a post that's been making the rounds online following the Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase presentation from yesterday, where this individual physical releases play physical, says updated game key card / code in a box list for Nintendo Switch 2. We will certainly soon include Monster Hunter Stories 3, The Adventures of Elliot, Pac-Man World 2, and Chronos The New Dawn. After all, Square, Bandai, and Capcom seem convinced that this is the best thing for them. And I will go ahead and take my camera off screen here for just a moment so you can quickly see kind of a glance at the games lineup that is looking to be the standard for this generation for physical games, which is third-party publishers and developers do opt to go the route of game key cards. There is a reason for this that I will remind you of in a second, but yeah, a little bit disheartening if you're a physical collector and you see the vast lineup of games, even brand new ones we just learned about, like Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, that will be coming over to Nintendo Switch 2. It is confirmed a game key card release. Persona 3 Reload, same thing. Octopath Traveler 0, FC 26, Little Nightmares 3, 2K26, you get the idea as the list goes on here. Some existing ones we've known about, but many of these we either got updates on recently or now can officially confirm that they are game key card releases. And we did have some movement around this topic recently online with some developers and publishers speaking out. I do want to also mention just quickly in this that Pac-Man World Repack, or Pac-Man World 2 Repacked, which I'm actually excited for this game, also confirmed to be a key card, and Borderlands 4, same thing. We do have the confirmation that it is a key card, 40 gigabyte download, mind you, but you probably remember that we did have quite a bit of talk starting to pop up. Two different reasons. One, there was a smaller publisher that was speaking out against game key cards and saying, basically just calling on other game developers and publishers to talk through them, that people want full on cartridge releases and to strike up a conversation because they could make it happen. And it seemed like one of these, smaller companies just kind of talking and maybe gave a little glimmer of hope to some fans that this is going to make some kind of notable change or movement. Well, while we have seen one-off games do the full-on cartridge release, most of the third-party games at this point in time, before and after that post, are a key card, and there's a specific reason for it, as mentioned. But we also had Nintendo investigating the game key card situation with a survey that we covered on the channel, where they were sending out a survey asking to learn more about players' impressions of the game key card, asking questions like if they know what a game key card is, if that would potentially impact their purchasing decision or anything like that. And it was kind of interesting to see Nintendo maybe want to do a little bit more research on this topic, maybe passing off that idea that they're going to look into this further. And this could change mid-generation, mind you, but I'm really not thinking it's going to, at least for the foreseeable future, unless if cost really comes down. Because if you're not familiar, a game key card only has the essential code to download the game onto your system on the cartridge itself. The benefit to this format is that you can essentially resell this as a physical game because it's unlimited download code as long as you have that cartridge inserted into your console, so you can resell it. You also need it inserted to play the game, so it's kind of a way to basically meet in the middle, a digital and physical copy. Clearly though, whenever it comes to long-term outlook and game preservation and stuff like that, and not having to worry about Nintendo servers being hooked up 20 years in the future for the Switch 2, it loses all of its value at that point because there is a immediate server download required to utilize a key card. Basically, one day these things could be entirely worthless if Nintendo totally pulls the plug on its servers and the ability to re-download your games from the Switch 2 era. Well, this Corey account over on Twitter did actually sum it up nicely, in my opinion, because this is where my mindset falls. Why are we seeing so many key cards? Game retails for $60. 64 gigabyte cart costs allegedly $15. To be fair, that is not a hard concrete number that we know is factual, but from inside sources, it does seem to be that that's about the cost of these cartridges. Nintendo gets their 15% licensing cut. Retail stores take the standard 30% cut. It's all about margins. To keep them similar to PS5/NS1, Nintendo Switch 1, they have to pick the game key card. And that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day, because in the Nintendo Switch 1 generation, we saw multiple different cartridge sizes that were supported. We saw them as low as 8 gigabytes, as high as something like 32. But it does appear that in the Nintendo Switch 2 generation, it is legitimately a 64 gigabyte cartridge option or nothing. The game key card is the other option. So you are either potentially paying a very high price to get your game on a full physical cartridge, which cuts into your margins, or you are going to go this cheaper route of the key card. And that is why we are seeing the key card as the go-to option for most of these third-party games. Nintendo has committed to release their own first-party games on the cartridge themselves, but they are first party. They're not going to do that and force all their third parties to do the same. So the only solution would be to come out with multiple cartridge sizes at a lower cost, although I do think there's some better technology that goes into these newer generation cards with like 3D NAND storage and stuff like that we reported on in the lead up to Switch 2. So it remains to be seen if cost will come down. Maybe it gets cheaper in the future, and or if Nintendo opts for multiple different file sizes. But regardless, these games are getting larger over the course of time, and while a game like Borderlands 4 at 40 gigabytes could fit on something like a standard 64 gigabyte cartridge, try to get the Call of Duty game on that. And so that's why I think that unfortunately we are just at a point as physical collectors that the further into the gaming future we go, the less of a convenient option physical will be, until it's just not there at all. I truly have my eye on if the next round of PlayStation and Xbox consoles have a disc drive at all. I truly believe Xbox probably won't. I think PlayStation may support the PS5 disc drive as a backwards compatibility option, but might not have one for PS6 exclusive games, or they have some kind of similar practice where the data is not on the disc you buy anymore, but it's basically a key to unlock a download. That's unfortunately what it seems like we're headed towards in terms of physical collecting on games. Purchase with your own wallet, make your decision to support whatever you want to support. At the end of the day, I'm picking up a lot of these third-party games digitally because while I like my collection, the appeal of the game key card is just not there for me personally. When they are fully on cartridge, I will pick them up physically still. That's kind of my rule of thumb for this generation, but an interesting one nonetheless. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on it in the comments down below. Okay, Kirby AirRiders for Nintendo Switch 2 has been rated in Saudi Arabia. So while we're still waiting on a lot of the new details for these games, they are apparently far enough along for Nintendo to submit multiple of them for rating. So the long-awaited new installment in the Kirby AirRiders series has just been rated in Saudi Arabia and given a 7+ age rating. Apparently the games are only rated in Saudi Arabia when development is complete. If true, then the game's release shouldn't be too far off. Nintendo has simply stated that Kirby AirRiders is out this year. So likely the game is content complete. It would be something where it doesn't have to be finalized without any patches or anything like that. But this game is probably done with its core development, and bugs, glitches, fixes, the basically polishing process, if you will, is likely what this game is undergoing right now. A rating is of 7+ in Saudi Arabia. It probably translates to an E for everyone here in the ESRB. But yeah, another game that I think we'll find out more about in September, or potentially through the Nintendo Today app, because Nintendo's not always just revealing information at Nintendo Directs for upcoming games. They're also just dropping it on that Nintendo Today app, or dropping large overview trailers like we recently saw go live for Drag X Drive. So no gameplay to look at yet of Kirby AirRiders 2, but one that I will have my eyes on, and I'm excited to see what Sakurai's been up to for these past few years. Okay, Nintendo Switch 1 and 2 firmware update. In case you wanted an explanation of what happened when you had to update your system recently, version 20.3.0 was released. The web browser was updated, and at least one of the changes made appears to be a security-related bug fix. There was no other updates on Switch 1. Not sure if anything else was updated on Switch 2. And I would like to point out that in the eShop, there has been something new discovered. It's minor, but you can now go to a section that actually says all Nintendo Switch 2 software, where it filters it just to Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive games, which is a nice option to have, just a clickable icon to quickly go to that list of games. As that library continues to grow out, Nintendo will probably continue to make it a little bit more obvious what Switch 1 and what Switch 2 and things like that. And this was a little baby step towards that in the eShop. But web browser updated for security features and things like that. General stability improvements is the official patch notes from Nintendo. So nothing groundbreaking, not really any reason to go into more detail than that, other than, I'm still waiting around just like you are to see if Nintendo will ever add in themes in a system update. It would be a huge win for people if they do it as an option, but we'll still wait around for that one on the sidelines. Okay, moving on from there, Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake is receiving a free Nintendo Switch 2 update. The update includes graphical improvements which make the game appear sharper and smoother, additional options which allow players to prioritize frame rate or graphics. So quite literally, a free Nintendo Switch 2 performance update is exactly what has been revealed here for Dragon Quest, and it's kind of unfortunate because this is for Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake. But I do want to point out exactly where we're headed after this, which is the fact that in the same breath as that, Square Enix confirms there's no Switch 2 upgrade path for Octopath Traveler 0. And this is a direct Q&A that was also highlighting it is not possible to upgrade from the Switch version to the Switch 2 version once purchased. There are also no plans for an option to upgrade the Switch 2 version in the future. Please make sure you purchase the correct version. And what's interesting is that Square is also doing this same exact option for Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD Remake, which also got a surprise trailer in the Japan Direct, by the way. It was not apparently in our Direct, so little variance there. I'll have it playing for you on screen in case you wanted to look into it. But this is a really weird one where they're turning around and saying free update for Switch 2 performance for one of our games that's already out. But these upcoming games that we're publishing, that we know you're going to be deciding which version you're getting, we're not going to do that upgrade path. You have to pick the version you want. And some people, like myself, that are physical collectors, would maybe like to have the option to purchase it on cartridge physically for the Switch 1 and do some kind of free upgrade update for the Switch 2 visuals. Not possible. You have to either choose between the game key card, which we've already spent enough time on, or you have to go ahead and buy the Switch 1 version, which will just have the downgraded visuals and resolution. So weird one from Square, because they clearly can do it, and they're announcing that they're doing it for free for Dragon Quest III HD 2D, but they're not going to support that for 1 and 2 HD 2D and or Octopath Traveler 0. But the tech is there and they can do it. So yeah, kind of one of those publisher workarounds. I guess they're kind of trying to say, oh, since you probably already had bought Dragon Quest III HD 2D on the Switch 1, we'll go ahead and give you the upgrade for that, but we're not going to put in the work to do that on any future games. So we're telling you up front, and don't expect an update file in the future. Maybe they turn around and do provide a free update at some point, just because they felt like it, but I wouldn't go into it with that expectation. So if you were pre-ordering either of these games, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D or Octopath Traveler 0, following their announcements and new information, just make sure you pick the version that you want to end up playing the game through. Okay, lastly, we're going to close out with a quick roundup of the updates for Mario Kart World. You probably saw a lot of dialogue and debate online about whether or not Mario Kart World was ruined from a recent update from Nintendo when they took away the ability to choose random, and that kind of guaranteeing a traditional 3-lap course race to take place. Well, you can see just at the highlight of this My Nintendo News article, latest Mario Kart World update increases the frequency of lap type courses online. And you have here, Mario Kart World has been updated to version 1.2.0 on Nintendo Switch 2. This mid-size update patches out dozens of known bugs and issues and makes quite a few gameplay adjustments as well. In response to the widespread complaints from the Mario Kart community regarding a change made in the previous update, Nintendo has increased the frequency of lap type courses appearing in online course selection. Check out the full patch notes below. And listen, the big two takeaways are one, there's a lot of different patches you can read through here, but the big two takeaways that I wanted to highlight is one, that lap type courses will show up quite a bit more frequently now, according to this update. That is a big deal because that's literally Nintendo listening to feedback, which if you're a Nintendo fan and you've been around for a while, you know that that's a rarity and something you probably should celebrate when it happens. Now, it's probably not perfect in everybody's minds. They probably still like a 3-lap traditional course selection only mode, but nonetheless, these are going to pop up quite a bit more. And then you might also remember we talked about just how efficient and effective the comms were in this game. And what's interesting is that they pretty much confirmed that they just downgraded the CPU performance across the board, like in everything other than battle, according to Nintendo. So comms have been downgraded. Apparently there was some findings online where if you used drifting mechanics, then the comms would actually be more efficient players, and even their likelihood of good items would go up. So they were very hard to compete against. Whereas if you didn't do drifts and you just took more simple controls and turns around the corners and stuff, they would recognize, I guess, that you're not as an advanced player, and they would get less good items and not be as good at the game. So kind of funny programming there from Nintendo, and they are clearly now walking some of that back, probably following a lot of the fan feedback that, hey, the CPUs are pretty busted in this game. So I haven't checked out the game post update. I just wrapped up Donkey Kong Bonanza, so probably a good time to go hop back in and see what some of these changes are. But let me know how you feel about all the different stories we talked about today in the comments down below. Before you leave, what do you think about the game keycard situation? And really, now that we've had a full blowout direct for third-party announcements, how are you feeling about pretty much everything third-party being a game keycard in this generation going forward? Are you hyped for Kirby AirRiders 2 at all, and more information to come on that? What do you hope we see out of the next Nintendo Switch 2 system firmware update? Something more notable maybe than this last one? Dragon Quest HD 2D getting the free upgrade for 3, but not for 1 and 2 or Octopath Traveler 0. What's your thoughts on that? And are you going to hop into Mario Kart World now that we have this new update for it? So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.